Good morning. Welcome to a new segment, another segment of Wise Gen Family, Faith, and Finance. A happy New Year. Well, almost a couple of weeks, and we'll have another New Year. It's the Lunar New Year, and it's one that I always look forward to. We call it our Vietnamese culture. We call it Tat. Uh, so it's exciting. I think it's actually next week, isn't it?
It is
The
next week.
29th.
Yeah.
So hope everyone are having a wonderful start to their day. And today we're going to continue to look into areas and tools that parents who have children diagnosed with autism, how to cope with that. So, Tiv, why don't you say hi to everyone? As this is my co-host and beautiful wife. Thank you so much. So, why don't you say hi to everyone before I set things up here?
Right. Well, good morning. It is an exciting time because if you are unfamiliar with the culture of the Asian culture with that, this morning we had a Zoom English class. Excuse me, I'm feeling under the weather. Um, the kids were so excited. Yeah, with kids in Vietnam, they were so super excited about going home. This is a time when just like on Christmas, they have like 10 to 2 weeks off of school, depending on the areas, and they get to go home to wherever home is. A lot of them actually move to the cities just for work with their parents for work, but they actually don't. Their original families, their roots, they always go back to their roots, and it is so super fun. I used to remember in Vietnam when we talk about that, our family was very. There were times when our family was doing well, but not all the time. We were not uh, a well-off family per se, and so this is a time that I look forward to new clothes, lissé, which is
Mm.
the
Always
red
like, always
envelope.
likely see.
Yeah, red envelope of money. But there's a tradition, a ritual to that. So before you can actually receive a red envelope or a lissé, you have to actually bless the adults, and usually it's the adults, and usually it's the married adults that bless these kids with the tradition of lissé. So there are a lot of superstitions that when we talk about that, there's a lot of superstitions that go with it, and lissé is one of those that where you give away, um, you're gonna receive good luck. Okay, yeah.
How many of you are excited about Lisi? As parents now, I get excited because I get to give. Part of that is about giving as well as we go out to give gifts to our loved ones. It's kind of like Christmas, isn't it? But as I was growing up, at least that was when I get to increase my piggy bank. Uh, I put money in the piggy bank. So it was also a time to look forward to getting some money so we could save. So lots of things are great about that. And for me, I also actually we're gonna have a Tet celebration at the church this coming Sunday. So if you're in the Grand Prairie area, I would invite anyone that wants to see what that is like at a church. Come to Living Word Evangelical Church. Our address is what
1-7.
1517 Southwest Third Street, Grand Prairie, Texas. So that's a wonderful time. Praise God for us this year to always have two New Years that we can look forward to. So um, let's talk about something that again is dear to your heart, Tiff. Is something that we touched on last program. Is
Tools.
well, we talked about children with diagnosed with
Autism.
autism.
Yeah.
Okay, and one of the things I remember you reminded me very vividly is that do not put an identity to these kids. And I thought about it and I said, you know what, that's absolutely correct. These children are born in the perfection of God. Because we live in this fallen world, we engaged with things and we have things that are of this fallen world. Suffering is part of it, right? And disease and all that. So these children are not and should not be looked at as autistic kids, but kids
with
with
something.
something. That's right. So in this case, when your child or you know a child that is diagnosed with autism, they're not an autistic kid. They're just a children with uh, autism. And today we're going to talk about how do how do we have to how do we deal with that? How do we cope with that as parents? And what tools would you suggest our viewers that they could use for helping these children function on an everyday basis? Think about even normal like we are, and we think we're normal, and it's hard for us to interact with people. Could you imagine what these children are doing or can be
Through. Yeah.
can have the anxiety, right, of living life with that kind of a problem. So, can you share with us some of the tools that you have seen effective when dealing with children with autism?
Well, that is a very broad question, and it requires a lot of studies, and also it requires a long time to answer. So, of course, in this one segment, I'm not going to be able to address everything, okay? But a few things that we need to understand is usually when students or children are diagnosed with autism, there's always something else with it. For example, there may be ADHD, which is a hyperfunction, or sometimes there's OCD, which is more of an obsessive possessive type of behavior, like we talked about last time. Some of them it's high anxiety, and we rightfully know why there's high anxiety. So there's that emotional piece to it. So just understand that autism is not just a one thing. It may be co-coded with other behaviors and other needs as well. Okay. So with that said, some of the tools to help parents and for me, this is not just for students or children with autism. It actually helps with all of our kids, especially young kids. And I use this with all of the kids at school. No matter, I find that it's effective no matter what grade level. But you want to stay in one thing more with students with autism, and I'm gonna go through those these tools. Okay, one of them.
Before you go into these tools, can you just recap uh, how does a parent recognize a child that
Yeah.
might have autistic characteristics? Just to obviously we can't. Every child is different, right? And they
Yeah.
have to get professionally diagnosed.
Yeah.
But there are clues, right?
Yeah.
There are clues
Some
to
behaviors.
say and to recognize that hey, this child might be borderline or whatever spectrum. So could you share that before you get into tools? Because sometimes I know parents who don't know how to diagnose
Yeah.
from a visual standpoint or knowing their loved one, their child. It's hard to even say, okay, well, I have to apply this tool,
Yeah.
right? So before we talk about the tools, share with the viewer how to quickly diagnose.
Okay, so again, if you have any questions, put it in the comment
Yes.
so that we can also, in future excerpts, we can also help you particularly to answer some of your
Yeah,
personal
our
questions.
program is recorded on YouTube. So, yes, feel free to put it in Facebook comments
Yeah.
or in the chat in the YouTube.
Yeah.
Or you can email us at thewaythetruthministry@gmail.com. Yes, ask us questions. And Tiv will try to answer the best she can. If it needs to go somewhere else, she'll find the answer for you. We'll get back to you. So please ask questions because we want you to be informed. This is all about being informed so that we could give the child the right love. And that's the key.
So some behaviors, of course, not all, and of course, not everybody who has these behaviors are with autism. So please understand that, okay? Because psychology and everything, it's just a lot. But some behaviors for you to be able to identify, study says that you can actually identify them as early as 2 years old. And some of these behaviors are eye movement. For example, if a child does not look at you in the eye when you're talking to the child and they're always looking somewhere else, that is an indication. That's not the only indication, but it gives you a clue. If a child doesn't respond to his or her name, that's another indication. If a child just does not talk, like in an untypical way, meaning usually a child should be able to form some words at a certain stage of their infant, of their age. For example, like 2 years old, they should be able to say one, two, three words. But if your child speech delayed is a huge part of children with autism, and also social skills. Usually, students with autism or children with autism lack social skills. That's what they say, and that's how we recognize it, because they don't have the back and forth. For example, if that child only wants to talk about him or herself and does not ever, and I'm saying every child has that, everybody, even us, right, has that piece in us where we're uninterested about anybody else's stories but ours, right? But this one is unusually uninterested in anything but what they want. And because of that, a lot of times, children who go undiagnosed, when we don't understand them, because remember what I just said, right? They lack social skills. They can't talk as well. They can't express their emotions. They can't express their needs. So what ends up coming out of it are behaviors like scream, yell, cry, and sometimes even beating and biting. Only because, not because they're mean, but it's just because they're trying to get their point across. And if they can't use words, they're going to use actions. So that's why, we have schools have tools in place, have psychologists, have speech pathologists in place in order to help
Right.
bring these kids along. Okay.
Um,
Oversensitivity, meaning sensory. I'm not talking about like emotional breakdown, but that too, okay? But oversensitive to sound, oversensitive to taste, oversensitive to feelings. Remember, we talked about last week, even with the material that you put on them, clothing, texture of food. And
so
all
those are some I
Some.
call symptoms or signs.
Yeah.
So let's go into the tools. One of the things you shared with me is social stories. What does that mean?
So remember, I just mentioned social skills is one of the areas that are really lacking for our children. And you know what? I find that after COVID, it happens to everybody, but it's more significant and it's more critical with children who are already, like have that autism piece in them, just because they're already not interested in other people's stories. They're not interested in, they don't know how to deal with situations. A lot of times they don't know how to share. So social stories are small stories based on real life scenarios that, and you can find these on YouTube too. You can go on YouTube and you say social stories on sharing, and you're gonna see some cartoons. People have already, researchers that are trying to come up with all these videos to help students and children with autism. They have a wealth of social stories, and you have to break it down. So sharing, taking turn, how to ask politely. And in social stories, what they do is they provide a real life scenario so that these students or children can almost look into it, because sometimes when it's not about them, they can learn what to do in those situations before it gets too emotional. So for example, if I teach them when, for example, they don't know how to share, and at the point when they're not sharing and you try to teach them, you're not teaching. They're not listening. Okay? It's not effective. So you want to teach them what to do before it comes to that point. And these social stories are what helps. It's just like how we used to read books and then we learn from these stories in books how to react to certain situations. And it's very important in social stories when, as parents, you don't always need videos. You can also use, in our culture or even everywhere else, we use teaching opportunities, right? You can do that too. And you need to ask the or teach them the what if or the if and then situations. If you don't share, then this is going to happen. You're going to be timed out.
So you teach them behavior through storytelling.
Yes.
I
And
see.
also, you have to create scenarios where, a positive reaction to certain thing will give you a positive result. A negative reaction will give you a negative result. So you have to talk about if then, that is in the event of consequences or reward, okay, based on your choice.
All right,
You have
cool.
to make that very clear, okay?
All right. So another topic or tools that you had talked about is creating some type of a structure in their daily activity, like a visual schedule or something.
Yes.
So what? How does that? How does parents do that?
Oh, all kids need structure. All kids need schedule. The
We do.
younger they
Adults
are,
need structure.
adults do too,
That's why we
right?
have time. Yeah, we have schedules and calendars.
Yeah.
But why is it important that these children who are have artistic
Yeah.
behavior in them, why is it important to really hone down on structure? What is it about structure, and how do we structure them?
Yeah, they thrive. They thrive on anticipating because they have a lot of anxiety going on. So when they don't know what's going to happen the next hour or they don't know what's going to happen next, that creates more anxiety in themselves. So when you have structure in general, that helps you to guide you, and as parents or even teachers, you have to be consistent. Kids and us thrive on consistency. So keep that in mind, not only for children with autism, but for anybody. They need structure. They
So how do
need
you
a schedule.
how do parents do that? What kind of and you said visual schedule?
Yeah.
So how do you do that for children?
With
At what age? And
autism.
yeah.
Okay.
So what are some
So
examples?
the younger the kids, I usually, because they don't know how to read, right? So you want to give them a picture of what that looks like. So for example, if I was to create a normal schedule, a day-to-day schedule, so from, let's say, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., that's school, right? You have a picture of a school, okay? When they come home, so for example, if they play soccer from 5 to 6, you put a soccer ball.
Soccer ball.
Yeah. So those are what's called visual.
Kind of like a pictorial calendar. Oh, that
Yes.
sounds cool.
Yes. A visual schedule. I usually would post that on the fridge. That way, the child, actually, these kids pick it up very quickly, but they will test you. They will test you to no end, just like any other children. They will pick up that iPad and wants to play game, okay, and test you. But you, as adults, you have to stick to that schedule because they will thrive. It will save you a lot of arguments, saves you a lot of bickering and just frustration in the long run.
One of the things I actually witness in children with autism is their frustration with things. If you ask them to do something, they get frustrated. And when I was talking to you, you had mentioned you got to break down the steps.
Yeah.
Okay, breaking down the steps, is that to help them organize their thought? Is that the reason? And I mentioned something you mentioned earlier that typically it comes with autism is other symptoms, other
Yeah.
problems, behavior problem like OCD or something like that. So how do we break down steps? Can you give an example of that
course.
for
Yeah.
our viewers?
So imagine yourself as adults. We go through this too without knowing. So as adults, if I tell you to go clean your room, and the first thing you're gonna do is, where do I start? Okay, what if it's crazy?
I would procrastinate.
Right,
Just
or clean the garage. Think about that. Okay, so you don't even know, like even adults go through this. So imagine a mind of a younger individual, younger person, okay? And when you are overwhelmed, you're gonna start acting up, acting out, right? So how does that look like? Instead of saying cleaning your room, I would say give them a chart, a checklist of some sort. I actually do that because I don't want to go back and say too many times on one thing. So the best thing to do is to tell them a time depending on how old your kids is, of course. But I say you have until noon, okay, or you have until 2 p.m. and I need this and that done. Pick up your socks, organize your shoes, hang your shirts, fold your pants, okay? So you have to break it all down. And even, and this is assuming that they know how to do all that already. But like I remember our youngest, he didn't even know how to tie his shoe until he was 10 or 12, okay? And so what we had to do was I had to break it down, okay? So you hold the two strings and breaking it down into steps. And it's can be frustrating for adults when we don't understand why are they not getting it. All it takes is just you take the two strings and then you cross them together and you make the loop and you do that, okay? But for these children, you have to show it to them probably 100 times or even more, and have them practice with you just one step at a time before they'll actually get it. So tying your shoes can be taken as like 5-6 steps, can be broken down into 5-6 steps.
So as parents, you have to have patience. You have to be able. What I'm hearing is that you got to break down each of these steps in a way that you kind of have to baby them through each of the steps.
Yes. I want to also put in here too is a lot of adults, after we teach somebody something about 3 times, now we expect that task or behavior should be mastered. I just want to let you know that with children with special needs in general, will take a lot longer than that. If they're not doing it, it's because part of it is because they're also frustrated at themselves too. It's not because they're defying you, it's not because they're opposing you or they're not paying attention or they're not being respectful to you. So take all of that emotion out and just say, okay, this baby just needs support, and start there every single time. Don't say, oh, why are you not, that will stop them from learning.
I think
Right then.
I think one of the things that I encourage is that as parents, it really takes an extraordinary ability out of us to be around the children that has autism, is because we have to not expect like normal. We have to come in with a sense of patience,
Yeah.
love, and forgiveness. We have to forgive them because they don't really know what they're doing, in a way, right? So,
And take the they're not respecting me or they're not being obedient out. Just continue to support.
yeah. So again, it's sometimes children who are on borderline don't if you don't know that your child is actually diagnosed with autism, and you see these types of behavior that Tiv mentioned earlier, maybe you need to sit back and really realize and think about this. Maybe this is just some symptoms of that. So if you could apply some of these tools, it can help you calm down. First of all, love them more and not get so frustrated, right? One of the things that I also witness watching children with autism is that you don't give them too many choices. Having too many choices really confuse them, isn't it?
That's overwhelming.
Yeah.
So when your child is not doing what you're asking them to do, then okay. So for example, if I needed to ask I had this too, when one of my kids in the morning would procrastinate on getting ready for school. So I would give him an option. I tell him you either get dressed, and I make it actually fun because I learned this from another video, but I thought it was so cool. So I say you need to get dressed. So you either get dressed on the bed or you get dressed under the bed. And he went under the bed and got dressed within like 3 minutes. So you limit choices, and if it depends on your child, of course, but don't give them, do you want to do this, that, or even food, offer food, okay? All of my kids, and I'm gonna sound really mean, all of my kids have starved before. So when I make food, I make maybe 1 or 2 types. So are you having this or that? And if you're not having, you either choose, or if you don't, then you're not gonna have snacks, okay? You're not gonna have, chips or any juice or anything like that. You can drink water, you can drink milk, okay? And maybe you can eat fruits, but you're not gonna have what I call, their preferred treats, full of sugar and stuff that they want if they are not choosing my meals. And yes, all of my kids have starved before, or not starved, but have skipped
Skip a
one
meal.
or two meals until they learn that, okay, I have to learn to eat.
Right.
Time of eating, like lunch is important, dinner is important. I don't, if my lunch, family lunch, is at 12, I'm not gonna cater to you at 2. Just because you choose not to eat at 12, I'm not gonna, as a mother, you have to get food, warm it up, and then clean up after that. So if you want to save yourself the hassle and save yourself, and I know I sound mean, but teach, that's part of structure, that's part of the schedule that I was talking about. And I'll tell you this, if they skipped 1 or 2 meals, they'll never do it again.
Yeah, I think that's a great tool, not just for autism, it's for children altogether.
Yep.
You create good habits and set boundaries, and expectations.
Yeah.
So the last tool we want to share is how to prepare them for change. I think change, like choices, change is very hard for children with autism to handle.
Yeah.
So if you got a plan and then you change the plan, I think that has a lot of effect for them, right?
Communication and understanding what their needs are. So for children who are with autism, if they are going to school, then I would ask their teachers. For example, like fire drills or severe weather. It gets really loud real quick, and there's a lot of people running all over the place real quick, right? So just let them know ahead of time. Say, hey, at this time there's going to be, okay, fire drills. There are times when we don't know that there's going to be a drill happening, but you have to work them up to that. For yourself too. Parents at home, sometimes we say a lot of things that we can't carry through. Okay? So if things do change, communicate with them. Just tell them, hey, we planned on this, but we're going to do this at another time, okay? We're going to do this tomorrow. Things have happened. And work with them. Listen to them. If they act out on you, just listen to them and say, yeah, we're going to get to it. Don't worry. And comfort them and console them, because they need to feel that constant safety. And then eventually you're going to find that they will be able to handle some surprises as they age. But the younger they are, the more you have to prepare them for it. If you know that they have a sensitivity to sound, always bring with you headphones. There's sound, what is that sound? Barrier headphones. There's a noise reduction headphones that you can just bring with you, even to the park. I know some of our students at school, they need it in the gym because they can't handle all that running around.
Yeah, these children
screaming.
are hypersensitive to noise. Is that
Yeah.
so? That's wonderful. Thank you, Tiff. We are limited in time for our program, but those are great tools that you have shared. So let me recap the tools that you have talked about. So social stories, creating structures, visual schedules, breaking down steps, limit the child's choices. Instead of giving them a choice of 10, you give them a choice of 2, so that they can try either this or that, right?
May I say,
Yeah.
I am so sorry. I'm going to include too. Sometimes my choices could be reward or consequence. Sometimes it doesn't have to be both rewards. I say, you do this and you're going to get this from me, or you do this and you're going to be timeout.
Yeah, so again, it's about giving them not too many choices, just a matter of 1 or 2. Actually, 1 is not a choice, but 2, at least 2 or 3, right?
Yeah.
And then last is help them transition into a change, or prepare them for change in their life, right? So moving school is probably a hard thing for these kids, right?
Yes
So
and
you
no. Yes and
no,
no.
you don't see that, or maybe
Yes and no.
something that is a change of environment.
or
Is that
even
is
on a
effective?
daily basis. We're talking about just a daily basis. Like if you have
Changing routine
some,
or
some
food,
changing routine.
changing in their food.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you have to prepare them for
yeah.
certain.
Slowly transition them
Yeah.
into those change. So, if you have any questions, feel free to comment in the video, the chat, or email us, and we will certainly get back with you on your answers. You know, answering your questions. But anyways, thank you so much for watching the segment. And before we close, as always, we find out what is in stock for our promise today, right? So you
Yes,
already got yours.
I got mine.
Let's,
So mine is in Deuteronomy 31:6. I think I got this one before, or maybe you did, because it sounds familiar. Be strong and of good courage. Do not fear nor be afraid of them. For the Lord your God, He is the one who goes with you. He will not leave you nor forsake you. I love that promise for the new year, actually. Very timely.
these are God's promise. So there's one thing is for sure is it is God's promise. So He's a promise keeper, and so we look forward to having these promises in our lives. And mine is from Mark 12, verse 31 in New King James is, and the second like it is this: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. What is God saying and reminding me is that we have to love each other. You know, not just the people that you're supposed to love, but love your neighbor. Neighbor is everybody, inclusive of even your enemies.
Yeah.
You know, and one of the things that is a great reminder as I read that is in this new year, I and maybe many of you need to think of that promise, and we need to love each other. The world is full of hatred, full of anger in today's society, and it's wonderful, and it's a great feeling to be ready my heart for the new year.
That's funny. He got that verse because we were just talking about love. And one thing that Andrew reminded me, and we talked about it, was love is actually the trademark of a Christian. So if when we wear clothes, if we want to know what brand it is, the Christian branding is love.
And why is that?
It is through love
why is
that
that?
people know that we are the children of God. Because God, I want to say, above all things, He is all about love. And so in order for us to, the best way for us to tell others about God is by loving.
Just to
Being
add,
loving.
just to add to what my wife shared is what resonates with me is, and what is biblical is God is love.
It
You know, you ever wonder
is.
how you learn to love? You ever wonder that? Maybe you can keep wondering, but if you want to know the answer, God created all things, including our ability to love. In fact, He is love. He created. Without Him in your life, in your heart, we wouldn't know how to love. Our love is through social media. Our love is those hearts that people, click on the social media. Maybe our love is through romantic movies. Maybe our love is through advertisement of the diamond ring. Love is forever. But those are a fleeting moment. Those are not everlasting. If you're looking for an everlasting love, it has to come from the Creator, and that is our God. Okay,
Yes.
so anyways, bye bye for now.